This was a tough session for me, but I wanted to share about it because it was the first time something like this ever happened. Back in January, I did a session for a dog named Ned, and he was living. And right away, I told him, like, his name is so cute. Didn't think I had ever talked to a Ned before. And he was like, thanks, do I look like a Ned? And I said, I was like, yeah, I mean, I can see it. He said, I didn't always have a name, I had a number. I mean, I didn't always have a mom and dad and family. And I'm thinking like, oh shit. Okay, he's saying like, I didn't have a name, I had a number. Like, what does that mean? And like, I know what that means. But I didn't want to go further at this point. We had just started the session. I wanted to like keep going, see what came up, you know, get to his mom's questions, see if anything was about something like that, and then go from there. So I left it alone at that point, and I was like, so you're a rescue? And he said yes, and the best rescue there is. I said, can you tell me about your personality, Ned? And he said, I think I'm bright and cheery. Like, I'm always in a cheery mood. I'm ready to start the day, whatever it is we're doing, even if all we're doing is hanging out. I don't get depressed. I have a very positive outlook on life. My attitude is very positive. It's never negative. I'm always happy, never sad. Throughout the whole conversation, Ned was like, I'm the happiest dog. Like, I'm not depressed. Like, I don't get depressed. I'm not sad. I'm never sad. I'm happy. I'm the happiest dog. So I then get to his mom's questions. And the first question she wanted me to ask was, your mom wants to know how you arrived at Beagle Freedom Project. And I didn't know what that was. So I stopped and I Googled it. And right on the Google page, it says Beagle Freedom Project is the world's leading organization for rescuing and rehoming animals used in experimental research. And I was like, oh, okay, here we go, right? Like, now we're going to talk about this. Like, now here we go. He said I was dropped off there. I wasn't good anymore, not for them, not where I was in the facility. And I said, okay, but what facility? He said, they put makeup on me. It was terrible. I didn't have a name. I was a number. I was a number there. I wasn't me. I wasn't me until my parents took me home, not the real me. And I do have some issues that I've internalized from being there. I said, do you want to talk about them? He said, I can become reactive sometimes if a lot of other dogs are around and I'm in a closed off space or something I perceive to be closed off. And I was like, well, in the beginning, you told me that you liked watching like other animals. And he said, I do like watching other animals, like birds and squirrels and cats, and seeing what they're doing. I showed you this in your head. Because at the time when he said that, what he showed me was him at a park with a pond watching animals in the distance. So he was basically like, yes, I like to watch other animals. I don't necessarily want to like go be in like with them. I said, so could you live with another dog? He said, the right one, maybe another beagle like me, like the Wounded Warrior Project. Now, I had asked, are you wounded? But what this really meant when he said that was another dog like me, like another dog that came from this situation, another dog that was like wounded, not necessarily physically, but mentally from coming from a situation like this. But I asked, I said, are you wounded? And he said, you know, we were talking about my bright and sunny disposition, and that's what I wanted to talk about, not this. And I said, well, you're telling me a lot of things I have questions about, more questions than I'm even asking you about, because I have 50 million questions right now about this. He said, you can ask. What questions? I said, well, were you born in the facility you said you were in? He said, yes, my brothers and sisters were born there, and me as well. We were bottle fed and put in cages and never played with. I don't think the people liked what they were doing, but they turned something off in their brain that makes them able to handle it. They turn it off and don't think about it. What they're doing, I mean. I have a tattoo, too. They tattooed us. I said, okay, so, I mean, were you always in a cage? He said, yes, we never went outside. We never did anything really. But I don't want to think about this anymore. And I said, but who dropped you off? Who dropped you off at this rescue you went to? He said, a nice person that didn't want to see me die. Many do. So then later on, he was like, remember, I am a very happy, upbeat dog. I don't think about all this stuff. You're bringing it up, but I just don't think about it, and you shouldn't either, and neither should they, meaning his parents. And I was like, are they rough with you in there? He said, yes, sometimes. I can't paint the experience as fairy tale wonderland. It's not. They have a job to do. We are the job. You seem to be very focused on this. And I'm like, yeah, I am, because like, I mean, you're telling me you were experimented on, and that's so cruel. He said, I don't know how to make you feel better about this. It didn't break me. I'm not broken. I'm not a broken soul. And look at me now, living my best life. That is what we should be focusing on. And I was like, but I have more questions. And he was like, ask hers first, because his mom still had questions she wanted me to ask. So we went through those. And so when we finished those, I said, is there anything you want to say before we finish, Ned? And he said, Ned, don't you love my name? I love that I have one now, and I am a person. I mean, like a dog person with a name. I don't think there's more to say. I mean, what I said about being bright and having a positive outlook and just being happy about not hurting, not being sick, I meant all of that, really. And that's how I want you to remember me from this conversation, not as a dog that was tested on. Don't think of me like that. That's not who I am anymore. That's not who I am. That was an old life I don't think about. Remember me as the dog who had the total positive attitude and is always smiling, not the other thing. Now, what happened at this point was there was a question I wanted to ask him, but I didn't ask him yet. It was like just the thought of, I want to ask him this. I didn't even ask him, and he was like, yes. So because animals will do that. Like, I won't even ask them something yet, and they'll answer. Like, they literally know my thoughts, so they know what I'm about to ask, and they just answer. So I was going to ask if they throw dogs away there. And he said, before I even asked, he said yes. And I said, that's so cruel. He said, I know it is, and I know you hate it, and I know you'd want to tear the place down and save us all. It's okay, Lori, I don't want you to stress about this, because I think that you will, and that's not how I want to leave you, so how can I make you feel better? And I'm like, he wants to make me feel better. I said, I honestly don't know. I guess I'm just focusing on how you made it and you're happy. He said, yes, they wanted me to have a second chance, and I did. And that's all I have for you today. I enjoyed this conversation. I know it was hard for you, but I'm okay. Remember that. Good old Ned is living his best life with a family who loves him. Think about that when you fall asleep tonight. That's what I want you to think about. And so I did this. So this was the first time. I've done like 740, sessions. This is the first and only time I have talked to an animal that has said, like, I was a number and not a name. So this stuff affects me. And it was the evening when I did this session, and I'm thinking like, oh my God, I'm going to be laying in bed thinking about this. But he's like, he was literally like, do not think about that. I want you to focus on, like, I want what you have gotten out of this conversation to be how bright and happy and cheery and positive I am, and how I'm never depressed and I'm just always happy. So it was really, as tough as that was for me, to just hear and feel how happy he is always was just amazing, especially, hearing the other stuff. I know this was a hard one. This was a hard one for me. I still wanted to share it though, just because obviously this exists out there. And yeah, it was hard, but I wanted to share it. I wanted to share it with you guys.